they're meant to,
Oops, you didn't press start.
oh my God,
Okay.
Miranda.
Thank you,
Okay.
Miranda.
I was logging in to see if I could share screen.
Oh,
Oh, thank you,
awesome.
Miranda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good.
All good.
So this,
So-
yeah, this is Thomas's particular website, but again, that is right, like the messaging
Yeah.
location.
So what is the cost?
Well,
No, there's
actually,
no,
I think my biggest thing, so in this moment, is just a little, I want, if I could just ask us to take a step back a little bit.
Yeah.
This is, which is really exciting. I think the first time that this team is actually able to start considering even a new project.
new project, new
Right.
public art. This is a public art project.
Right,
Yes.
right, for the first time. So that's
Yeah.
really huge. Thank you for being here, and that's
Mhm.
helping us get to this place.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, what does that process look like? Is it something where we are asking, what is the budget?
Mhm.
Is someone putting a proposal? Are they bringing it to us to make a decision, or are they bringing it to us so that we can help them
Advise.
make a
Yeah.
proposal for the mayor to say yes?
Mhm.
Okay.
What are
yeah.
the words that
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
we're doing here? if
That's
that makes
so
sense.
good.
And we do have this embedded in our practices and policies.
Right.
And we have in there too, a proposal for new public art in Gloucester.
Yeah.
We haven't developed a form for that yet. We don't have an actual form, but that's pretty easily done with the baseline that we have for this. So great point. So I think, yeah, the
Yes.
first step would be for, Thomas with Kate's help to create that kind of proposal form once we get that up and running.
So for us, I think one of the things that the cost would be, does this come from our budget?
No, there's
yeah.
I think there's no, this is
Yeah.
privately funded.
He's
It's
privately
privately
funded.
funded.
It would
Okay,
be
that's-
public art on public
There's that.
land. Yeah.
And it could also, I think, also be on private land,
Yeah.
which, but I think we're looking at it to be on public land in the city.
Uh-huh.
And again, it's gotten to the point of, now it's a manageable project. And it's, yeah, no funding is required.
Mhm.
And again, that's where I also considering, I don't see the need for, a budget for DPW as, just based on the artist's past experiences. So, but these are things to consider. And as well as, I know maintenance of the project, I know if it would be great to have an actual piece, but there's a QR code involved with, messaging that brings you to a website. And, in some communities, the pieces have been up for a long time, but we could also, determine how long the public art can remain public.
Right,
So
and that
yeah.
would be in the proposal form as well.
Correct, yeah, so that would be, it could be a 6-month, it could be 1 year. I know, there, just based on the concerns that I heard, I think everything is quite manageable and again, he's quite persistent in following up, which I greatly appreciate.
He's
Yeah.
been at this for a number of years.
Yeah.
So I'm with the ECCF and this was one of the first, his project was one of the first that we considered back in 2018.
2018.
And he wasn't ready then, he didn't have partners in place and all then. He came back 2 years later with partners in place and a much better plan. And so we funded him then to start his work and start, installing these medallions and he's now in multiple towns, all up and down the coast here.
Mhm.
And they're medallions and the intention is
Right.
so that we, members of the public, can just encounter these organically. So we come across one, wherever, say at Stage 4 Park, and look at it, and there's a QR code if we want to know more, but basically there's a message on it that says something like, in
I have a good one right here.
2070, in 2070, the water will be up this high.
Yeah, all life station flood proofed in anticipation of the growing threat of flooding from rain and sea level rise,
Yes.
2035.
So it's things that have happened to mitigate, the effects of climate change or are happening to mitigate the effects or consequences if we do not mitigate the effects of climate change. So it's all the different kinds of messages and they're very site specific.
Correct.
And part of his work is to work with the communities
Oh.
to identify specific sites to have the strongest messages
Yeah.
that can be encountered by the public. And then the idea is we're encountering those messages and say, oh my God, I didn't have no idea about that. I look a little bit deeper, look at some of the research and then take action. So that's really the intention. So the number of medallions and the messages of medallions, I understand that the mayor's wanting to put a positive spin on this and positive
correct.
light because Gloucester has done some things. But we'd also have to consider
Mhm.
what do we want looking forward? You know, do we want to actually work with this artist to, you know, to have some messages so that action in the future can be taken?
Correct, and and the mayor, I think too, and that's where Thomas has gone to city councils and such, but I think that this could just be contained to within our committee for our particular city. And as well, it's, listening and there were concerns about messaging as well as maintenance of the piece, which it really are all quite easy to overcome.
They're metal, yeah, they're metal and I think he did a lot of research to source the material that he's used and the print process so that the print process can withstand weather, outdoor weather. So
Yeah.
anyway, there's a
Yeah.
lot of history there. And I think the next step with this would be that maybe Miranda and I can work on that form that will attach to the policies and practices document that we have.
Right.
Billy and John, I shared with you the working folder, the shared
Yes.
folder. And in there, there's a set of policies and practices developed over the last year that will be attached to the ordinance that sets up this committee, basically. And it will be like referred by reference. I don't think that's happened yet. It's in the legal department now to figure out how, I think that's right,
Oh, fine.
to figure out how
Yeah.
to incorporate it. But in any event, there are a few specific processes that will require people like Thomas to submit a form to this committee, and then we can make recommendations to the city from there. So we can look at that and say, all right, he's looked at weather, he's looked at cost, he's looked at placement of things. And we've worked with him and now we're ready to make a recommendation to the city, to the mayor's office and city council if necessary, to give them the green light
Right.
for this process.
Yeah,
So,
for a temporary public art piece. So
Yeah,
this is,
yeah.
again, setting us up for future projects, which is great.
okay, so
Yeah.
next step on that, Miranda and I will,
I have a quick question.
Work on it.
How are you doing with the grants? The last time we talked, you were having some trouble
Oh.
identifying some grants. Are you-
Yes, so that's actually a good
Can I,
question.
sorry, can I just finish
Yes,
this point
sure.
before
Yeah,
we
yeah,
jump
yeah.
to grant?
Yeah, that's a great segue though.
Just
for
to
the-
say, just because I pulled up the CAFTA policies, and I
Yeah,
think it
great.
is, since we have it, that the steps we outlined would be initial letter of interest, which would be, I think, great. It sounds like that's more or less what he's already sent to the
Mhm.
city,
Mhm.
but sending that letter of interest to the committee, then asking if he wants to present to the committee so we can discuss
Yes,
with
so
him.
you bring in a piece.
The process.
And then and the idea for this, which is building off of ECCF's work,
Yeah.
which I think is really great, is don't ask for a whole proposal if the intent is not clear,
Mhm,
right? Because that's just a waste of their time,
Mhm.
frankly. So
mhm,
a short letter of intent, and then if the letter of intent is approved,
mhm.
the applicant files for a public art proposal. So it sounds like our
Mhm.
steps are outlining, this is what a letter of intent is, this is what a
Yeah.
proposal
Yeah.
is. And then if we approve the proposal, that's when we write a memo to the mayor and outline, and hopefully it could cut out some of the work that you're doing if we do this first, because
Yes.
all of these questions that are coming up would
Yeah.
be addressed in the proposal, and then we could make that
Great.
formal recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was also sort of, he was revisiting because of, I think previously when things were addressed, this wasn't in place. So this is
Right,
where it's
right.
really helpful. And again, I think that, it will help the process moving forward.
So why don't we ask him for a letter of interest?
Yeah.
Letter of
Yeah.
intent for this project and then, invite him into our next meeting.
And then we can use that by next meeting, we'll have a proposal. that we can
Exactly,
fill out.
exactly. Yeah,
That's
sounds
great.
good.
That's
Just so that's a really clear follow-up with
Structure.
him, is you present it to here, he can bring his letter of interest here.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
he's had, he's shared some press, so he can bring his, presentation. So I think
Okay.
that's fantastic, and I prefer to see that than things sort of get pushed aside, or it's a good way to move forward with things like this. So
That's great.
and yeah, and then segueing to grants, so we still interestingly have had a bit of a delay with our receiving the funds from Mass Cultural Council, as they have a new system in place with their DocuSign and legal processes. So we're hoping to receive our funds soon for both cultural districts, where we had announced the beautiful announcement at Gloucester Stage in November, and we still have not received the funds, but we will we have we have I believe figured out the missing piece to that puzzle. So we shall have the funds, but prior to the end of, when they need to be spent by end of June. So and then we can think about
How much funding is coming into the
so
districts?
so it's fantastic, 15,000 for Rocky Neck and 15,000 for Harvard.
That's great.
So
That's great.
Yeah.
Last year, not to put you on the spot,
Yeah.
the city also offered an extra 4 for each one. I don't know if there's obviously with David leaving, that was something that I shared with him, and I don't know where it is, but
Hmm.
if there's potential for the city
to map like a slight map or
it was
partial
ended up
match.
being $4,000 on top of the 15. The 15 is coming from the Mass Cultural Council, but not to be confused with the local cultural council.
right,
Those are
like
two
the
separate things.
LCC, yeah.
And then the Gloucester Stage right now is sort of in the Rocky Neck side as the fiscal fiduciary sponsor, in essence, making sure the money goes where it's supposed to.
But Harbor Town gets some too, right?
And-
Yeah, each
Yeah.
15.
Each one of them are done.
Yeah.
Maritime
Gotcha.
Gloucester, I
Oh,
think,
okay.
serves as the
Yes,
Harbor Town representative,
Correct.
along with the museum and others.
yes.
That's great. It's great.
Yeah, so that, yeah, and that is interesting. So I can, the mayor did ask if there was any matching related to these, so I can, as we are still in discussions, I can bring up additional funding as well.
There's no required match, but
Right.
it would be great if the
Yeah,
city
it
kicked in.
may be that it was not included in the budget, but it is certainly worth asking. And I know too, it's like, so as we talk about, there have been some grant opportunities, and I saw a few that were could be specific to Harbor Town, and I shared with our Harbor Town friends.
Harbor Town is the downtown cultural districts.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, interestingly, I guess I getting back to my email, we had in a previous meeting talked about poet laureate, and I think that's an exciting thing maybe to revisit. And there is funding, national funding for poet laureates throughout the United States, and that rather than a volunteer position, we might be able to offer a generous stipend.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Let's apply.
Yeah.
What does it take? Can you let
Yeah,
us
and I
know?
will share that. And I just,
Okay.
again, it's sort of following up, we're looking to some things that were successful in the past that may have paused and revisiting, but it's I think having a stipend is a real incentive.
Good,
So,
okay.
of course, and that I will share further. And then as I'm still pulling up here, so.
Has anyone ever worked with, I'm sorry to cut you
So
off.
go, please.
The MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, their technical assistance program.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with that at all?
Not directly, but I know about it.
It feels like that might be a good opportunity for us. I haven't shared that with Kate yet,
Yeah.
but it is basically a funding program that enables and assists cities and towns in implementing projects that are beneficial to the community. Municipalities are invited to submit project concepts for work to be undertaken through this technical assistance program.
Mhm.
And basically they're opening, 2024 concepts. I just don't know enough about it, really.
Yeah. Or what we would need it for.
It does say, eligible project areas are arts and culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know exactly what, like, in the world of, I know how like a feasibility study works, I know how like a capital asset plan works for a nonprofit. I don't know what a technical assistance program exactly is. It
Mhm.
seems to me like, I just would like to know more.
Right, that's great. I can even get further details about that and and maybe some ideas, like again, just to how it could work with the city.
They probably have a listing, could give you a listing of what they've funded before for TA projects, which would be informative, you know, it could be.
And then, right, and
Incentives, yeah.
it's sort of like for this team, you know, part of me feels like, what is the thing that needs funded?
Exactly.
What is the project for us, you know,
Right.
is it a comprehensive, you know, public art
Mhm.
plan? Is that something like that? Is, and I'm not sure, so
Yeah.
let's put our
You
thinking
gotta go.
caps on.
Okay.
It
See you,
looks like their
Judith.
past highlighted
Oh.
projects, which I think
Oh,
is a
wait,
great-
before you go,
Yeah.
I want to approve the minutes from January. So, sorry to disrupt the flow here, but.
Standing by.
Okay, can I have a motion, if you've all had a chance to review the minutes from January 30th? May I have a motion, to approve?
So moved.
Can I move it if I wrote them?
Yes, you can.
And I'll
Okay.
second it.
Great.
Any discussion about the minutes from January 30th? And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. You can go.
Bye, Judith.
Sorry, guys.
Good to see you.
Just to that point, Chris, it looks like their highlighted project specifically under arts and culture is the Malden Center for Arts and Culture Concept Plan.
Oh,
Local arts indicators for 4 communities. And then the Watertown Public Arts Master Plan. So I think it would be planning. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense. Metro Perrop's Area Planning Council. So,
Like, yeah, helping to fund the MAPC planning.
Yeah,
yeah, asking MAPC to help us fund
Yeah.
an arts plan, I think would probably be, and I think we would be well positioned to say we've done all of the volunteer work. And if we got a major grant, it would take it to the next
I agree.
level. So that could be a real shoo-in.
anyway, that's great. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, and
yeah.
and interestingly too, there was some discussion in the last Mass Cultural Council meeting regarding some of the available grants, and I know that was briefly discussed. And another one that I thought could be a great opportunity for Harbortown, it's called the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative Grant. And for municipalities. And I can open a link, and when I looked at this grant opportunity, I think the area where other places, cities, towns have been successful is in wayfinding and branding. And I think that would be greatly necessary for our downtown area. So it's like they offer a range of services and assistance to help, seeking help on how to revitalize their downtowns. And that is obviously something that's happening in downtown Gloucester as it's been evolving, that we have some new.
Well, actually, not to cut you off again, I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry. So Discover Gloucester got
Yeah,
ARPA money to do
To do
the branding for
wayfinding.
downtown.
Yeah,
But I don't think that any of that money, actually, no, it's not. The money is not for implementation of that brand. The
Mhm.
money is just to do the research and provide, you know, like, yeah, the visuals of it, right? Like the brand guide and stuff. And so if there was a grant that could then support whatever that downtown business initiative will need, you know, whether it is literal signage, you know,
Yes.
with this new brand.
yeah.
That would make a really good compliment from the city's perspective, I'm sure. Because I know that the ARPA funding that went to Discover Gloucester is
Right.
just for the
Yeah.
the development of
Okay.
the brand, not.
good to know. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and
I don't
Anna
think
also
so.
is part of the ARPA funding as well,
Mhm.
which is actually very interesting as well.
All right, are there other grant areas?
That was the most specific one that I think, which is timely. So
Mhm.
again, that's, we can, tie that in together.
In any other business from
I know, that is it.
cities?
That's quite a bit. There's a lot.
There's a lot,
going
that's a lot.
on.
Great, thank you for all of that. We'll take next steps on Thomas Starr and his public art piece. Let's talk about the arts inventory status. And
Thanks for being here today.
Yeah.
yeah,
thanks for having me.
yeah,
Do we introduce ourselves?
We
Great.
did.
we did
Okay, sorry.
earlier. This is
You
Chris.
wanna introduce yourself?
No, I'm sorry.
We were not on the record, though.
Yeah.
I hit start, but I didn't hit what?
start web, so you started the practice session and then the
Oh.
next layer is to
practice
start the
session.
webinar.
Thank you, Miranda.
All right, thank you, Miranda.
And just as we figure this out, I logged in and I, as a participant, don't have permission to share screen.
Oh,
So if
okay.
we want to share screen, it will have to be the administrator. So whoever set
Yeah.
up the Zoom will have to be logged in on their
Oh, okay.
laptop. Cause otherwise you're, a city viewer, you're not active.
Okay,
Right.
that would be great for, so again, for future
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah,
needs.
yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the inventory. Where are we at? I know you guys have been working on it for the last couple of months and we hired Anna to do the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I think we had a great conversation, which was awesome. And really, there's just what's funny is a couple extra inventories came out of the woodwork here in the last couple of weeks, which is great. We're glad to have all the information. And so we kind of talked about this, and Anna was like, "Hey, I think I'm just going to put these together and see where they
Yeah.
where they overlap, so we have a starting point."
Yeah,
I don't know if you
makes
want to talk
sense.
So yeah, there's 3 documents that I'm currently working from. There's a 2006 list of some pieces in City Hall. There's about 96, to be too specific, there. There's also a 2014, which looks like it drew from that list. I haven't figured out exactly how many overlap there, also from City Hall. And then there's the WPA mural from my list from 2018. That I'm also adding. So that's where we're at with pieces. The other part of what I'm doing with those pieces is I'm bringing them into a spreadsheet, and I'll be adding from that spreadsheet. I'll be taking from that spreadsheet and putting it into the artwork archive CMS system. Couple little holdups before I actually start doing that, which is to have mixing up names because I don't have faces to names yet,
It's
but
okay.
the IT person.
Ryan.
Just a couple little logistical holdups where I need access.
It's not
to
just
the-
as easy as she doesn't used to get to walk in and start taking pictures and looking at stuff.
I see.
Everyone wants us to move a little bit slower, so. But that's real though.
I was
'cause, like,
supposed to start this on February 7th. I feel like I haven't started in a way.
I know.
But yeah, I have to set up an artwork archive account. Started to put stuff in there. That's not a thing I can do apparently, so I have to
Mhm.
delete that system and I have to start over.
Yeah.
So I have.
Sorry, that was my fault. I was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Like,
So-
great.
So what happened?
Oh,
Literally, we have to set it up?
The city has to set it up, I guess?
yeah, it has to be set set up through our IT department, specifically.
Because it's
Even though
gonna
a
live on,
cloud-based,
I'm sorry.
even though it's a cloud-based system, that it's just a login?
I mean, personally, what's gonna happen is, so there's a 14-day trial.
Right.
I've come to the end of that now. So the next step would be for me to pay for it.
Right,
I'd rather not, just because what happens is in a year,
right.
I'm gonna probably be like, hey,
Mhm.
you guys wanna pay for this again? Like,
Mhm.
no,
Yeah.
so I'd rather it be in the city's.
So the
Right.
city needs to pay for it, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a holdup
Mhm.
there.
And so the tech people are helping out with that. I mean, I'm certain that there are things like QuickBooks and other things that the city pays for with a credit card.
Correct, yeah. We, on the backside, we've been talking about what can be paid by credit card, what needs to, in those sort of specifics we've been dealing with a few different departments.
Yeah.
So, but again, and that, today I will help, bring these
Nudge
next
that
steps
along.
together.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
good. And then
Thank
the
you.
other part, the other holdups are, couldn't really understand what was going on, but I think I need to be, have the official contract signed before I start taking pictures in City Hall.
The official contract hasn't been signed yet?
Well, it was signed and then I noticed that it was missing a payout schedule and deliverables and all that stuff.
Yeah,
It was the initial the initial bid
Mhm.
attached to the thing, but it wasn't I will deliver, it wasn't as a contractor,
Mhm.
something that I would propose.
Right. Right.
I'm gonna start this project, I need this much money, I'm gonna deliver 50 pieces, I need this
Mhm.
much money, I'm gonna pass off the project, I need this much money. So there's none of that in the contract
Mhm.
at all.
Yeah, it's.
So
it's
that
going
needs to
th-
be
yeah, it's going-
addressed.
It's going through our purchasing department, and I know the legal department looked at it, and it's just, I think it's just as how they pay other vendors and things, and so,
But-
that's from my understanding.
Can I just say out loud, so one thing that we need to be aware of is that, you know, and this is on record, so I'll be careful how I say this, but the onboarding process for someone like Anna has been not very welcoming.
Yeah,
But not because of anything the city's doing inappropriately or anything by that means, it's just, it is, unless you do business with the city all the time,
mhm,
this is a strange thing. So as our committee, who is gonna be working with a lot of people, I think, as we're doing things, we just need to be very cognizant that it is our job, I think, to step in and make sure that we're assisting to smooth that process over. I mean, in essence, that's what Gloucester Stage does for the Rocky Neck Culture District, is to make that, what is a grant that is going to the city, smooth, easy for all the artists to participate. And I think that's a little bit of what we, the team can do.
Exactly, and I didn't realize that ARPA funding was involved, and some of this is the transition of David to his new position, so,
Absolutely.
and that's where, you know, again, we're smoothing it all out. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you
And
for your
for-
help, because it is a lot. I know, you know, I
Yeah,
can't
it's a lot.
imagine, you know, in the concept around the purchasing, you know, this isn't an employee, so it's just
right,
we're just paying for someone, you
Right.
know?
right.
So,
Yeah, and yeah, just it goes again in my mind to the benefits of having someone employed by the city to look after
Yeah,
the arts
thank
and
you.
culture matters, because if you weren't in place, talking to purchasing, talking to DPW, you know,
That's right.
being that gatekeeper and smoother outer, you know, I'm not sure how we would be managing it as
Yeah,
volunteers, so.
sometimes I just see things, get lost, is what it seems like,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
In terms of next steps,
Mhm.
happy to share the spreadsheet with everybody. I know that there are gonna be pieces that kind of come out of the woodwork as I
Yeah.
tackle this
Nothing
project.
crazy unexpected, that's fine, off the record or on.
But I would like for people to kind of take a look at what's there,
Mhm.
and just note anything that they feel might be missing, so that I can tackle this project in a way that makes sense for me and for
Okay,
everybody else.
so I'm wondering if your spreadsheet should be part of our shared folder. So I can give you access to the shared folder. Keep in mind too that everything in that shared folder is public record. Okay, because we're a
Okay.
public body, so, yeah.
Great, I won't
Whatever.
put any funny stuff on there.
No, I mean, not just you, but I
I
have to
do
say that for the
put
rest of
jokes I do put jokes in my stuff, so, you know, if there's something that looks funny, it's actually me. But,
Is that something maybe that should we share with our new members, it's like the,
I've done,
Oh.
they've got, I shared the shared folder with them this morning.
oh, okay. great.
Yes, yeah, so they can.
It would be great, you know, I just think that, like, again, how some inventories have come from other folks, like, at the last minute, which is weird, so. This is like me saying out loud that, I wanna invite like Judith and Rebecca to like be there one of the days, so that, cause I just think sometimes there's a feeling of like, oh, of course you don't know about this, and I'm like, yeah, cause you gotta say something. So it would be great for I know she's gone, but
Institutional
her
knowledge.
and Rebecca, yeah, just whoever to go, and also it'd be great for, I think, Anna's first day in the city hall not to be alone, so.
Oh, yeah.
Right, just,
okay, so you think Judith and Rebecca should both be there,
they don't have to
Oh,
be,
yeah.
but like,
ideally?
it would be great if we could be like, hey, will you like go?
When are you thinking, what is there, are you moving
were hoping
into
to
an
do
office
it
in City Hall, or you?
If
What
you
are you
wanna give
talking
me one, sure, I'll use
There
it.
There is a lack of office space,
Yeah.
So
unfortunately.
what do you,
It's also doesn't have an office.
in
Yeah.
terms of an in-person meeting, what are you
I
referring to?
think, I mean, I don't know if you wanna just talk about your plan, but I mean, you know, my assumption is you're gonna pop in, and be fairly light moving around the space.
Yeah,
But then whatever day, if you wanna let us know when you're going, if you could just email the team, like, hey, these are some days I'll be there. And then, you know, I don't know if someone wants to say, you know, hey, Judith, Rebecca, if you
Yeah,
have a
we'll help you.
chance,
yeah,
Okay, that'd
could
be
you
great.
stop over?
okay,
I need to clarify with, I think who,
Pam,
Pam, that's it.
in the.
Cause
mayor's
I was like, I
office.
wanna come in, and she was like, no.
Yeah.
You can't do that, and until like a handful of things are
Correct. And- and-
done, so.
Yeah, and that way too, and we can, you know, we'll just go through some of the logistics, as you know, if you need a table or a place to work or put your belongings, so,
Mhm.
you know, we'll go through that.
Yeah, I mean, initially I was gonna come in and maybe take a few photos and scope it out.
Yeah.
My thoughts were to take 10 pieces
Mhm.
and fully put them on the
Mhm.
spreadsheet and
Mhm.
have people approve them and then upload them to the Artwork Archive CMS
Love that, yeah.
system.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then, like, again, everything looks good, great, and then I'll start kind of like running through
Yeah.
and not everything has to be approved,
Okay.
hopefully by that point. So the first time I visited City Hall, I was gonna really just scope it out and take a few shots and not be there all day, but yeah, I mean, definitely I would need like to set up a full day
Mhm.
to really, at least, I mean, I don't know exactly how long this is gonna take me.
Right.
Oh, and
How
also,
many
Annette,
hours?
I'll double check, make sure that you are aware of the City Hall hours too.
That'd be great.
So one thing is, we talked a little bit about like how a lot of it is portraits, but there are things like the man at the wheel.
Mhm.
And what's great is our archive has some great examples of like, photographed physical, pieces, but I think you have the capacity to
Mhm.
show us that, but it would be cool to see some stuff, I think, and if you look at it.
Mhm.
The other piece is like the murals, which as I understand are rolled up under the stage, is that right?
There are some, a few,
There is
and
some,
pieces of murals,
and then there are some that like aren't even in City Hall or aren't
Yeah.
even in the city,
exactly, some are
anymore.
in schools or, yeah. Yeah,
possibly
they're
not.
spread
in-
out
Yeah,
around the city, so.
So I think if, one thing I wanna say out loud is like, not to volunteer us, but I don't know that, like, if we want them photographed and on this thing, I think we're gonna probably have to help, like, if it involves like unrolling a mural or
Oh,
something.
yeah, sure.
I think we
Yeah.
will.
Oh,
have to help with that, if that
absolutely.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And whether it's like going into the school and pulling them out.
I wonder if, just to get yourself chugging along, there's, as we've mentioned, plenty of artwork that isn't in City Hall.
Mhm.
So if the holdup is access to City Hall, I,
Mhm.
for example, work at the Cape Ann Museum and we have at least a handful of Fitzhenry Lanes that belong to the city of Gloucester that are on permanent loan to the museum.
okay.
And so if you wanted to start by visiting the museum
Mhm.
and cataloging the work that we have, which will hopefully be fairly easy because it's hopefully cataloged by the museum. That's not my department, so
Yeah, yeah.
I will connect you with others,
Okay.
but I'd be happy to help you with that.
Okay, that
That's
sounds great.
an awesome invite, thanks, Miranda.
Thank you so much.
We'll get it done.
Great. sounds
Yeah, we'll
great.
get it done. But yeah, those basics, your contract, and access to, through IT are super critical to
Mhm.
get done ASAP.
Mhm.
So that seems like the priority right now.
I'm held up moving and like working for other jobs, so
Are you, okay?
if it's not done tomorrow, I'm not gonna
Yes.
cry about it.
And we don't have a
But-
specific deadline for this
Okay.
either, so.
But I
Yeah.
I would say like personally, I do, I'd like to wrap this up by September,
Yeah.
so
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good, good.
I think I still feel that's feasible.
okay, great. So yeah, I don't wanna drag this on more than anybody else does.
Okay, good, good. All right, next on the agenda is, the CPA. I spoke in front of city council a few weeks ago. They were just approving all of the Community Preservation Act, funded projects for this year. And so I gave our pitch and, yep, they voted in favor of it. So we're good to go. The money will be available to us,
Wow,
or is available to us.
you're saying that so casually. This is like $150,000.
$125
Wow.
is what they ended up granting us.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It is.
Yeah.
Congrats, geez.
Yeah.
I just went to this meeting. Oh,
I was
Wow,
actually at a
okay.
dinner party that evening and I had to take a break to do my little presentation. I went into a closet and just did those.
That's
And then it was, but we've been through so many different layers of city approval for this, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I could have done it in my sleep. Anyway, so it's been approved by, by city council, which was the last step. And for John and Billy, we had applied last year for community preservation money to do some overdue work, for some of the city-owned artworks. With the inventory being like the baseline, that's not CPA funding, that's being paid for by ARPA. But this is the next step, which is, once we have this inventory, done, so September-ish. We need to employ a firm or two, a conservation firm or two, to look at and assess all of the plaques and historic markers, one category, and all of the sculptures and 3D works in another category.
Yeah.
And update the assessment of the murals that was done in 2018 by this company, Williamstown Art Conservation. So we need to update that, make sure that it's still valid. So part of this $125,000 is going to go toward getting professional assessments of what's needed to conserve and preserve these artworks.
Oh, great.
All right, that's a piece of it. And so we'll have reports by them that we hope to get done this year, that assessment part. And then this grant is basically a 2-year grant, so it's through 2025. And in 2025, we would hope to take some of the prioritized projects that we learn about and actually put some money toward doing preservation projects. One of them I know that we've identified and has been identified, before, is the Man at the Wheel. And so we'd have to, arrange to do that and oversee it and, look for the right contractor to do that. And all that requires.
And for those of you new to the team, we learned a lot about patinas.
Yes.
Oh,
this
yeah.
last year, and about how the
Salt
folks in
water.
Gloucester knows a lot
Oh,
about
yeah.
next door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are learning as we go, and our historic knowledge, Judith obviously has some about this committee and the work it's done over years. Rebecca Reynolds
Yeah.
is not on the committee anymore, but she will keep serving as an advisor
Okay,
to us. She is, she has the chops as an arts
right,
conservator and
right.
has the connections for us to the right people to employ for this. So that all being said, we're going to need to start fairly soon taking next steps in that, which is basically to start reaching out to Williamstown and whoever else would want to look at the sculptures and the plaques and line them up for the fall to actually come in and start doing an assessment of that and getting their proposals to do so. That's one of our jobs for the year, and it's going to take some doing, as we've seen in other works that we've done. So, any questions?
Well, the man at the wheel is such an iconic symbol of the city. I think that, proceeding, slowly and carefully is very important because I could just imagine the change in patina with.
Oh, it won't change, but it's not going to be anything but green. It will not be anything but green, no. And green can be done,
It
we've
can
learned
be,
that it can be
yes,
done.
yeah.
It's not necessarily the original patina. It was probably brown or,
Yeah.
It was,
so, yeah.
having seen historic photos.
Yeah. But the green patina is beloved and,
Correct.
we've heard that from the public. So anyway, so this is all a process that will unfold, maybe between now and our next meeting in April. We can, get from Rebecca and Judith their recommendations of how to first proceed on this and who to reach out to specifically besides Williamstown. And the question too that I have is, do we actually need to have the finished inventory, assuming that we do, to take these first steps, so that we have a
Gotta
full
make sense.
scope of what exists, and where things
My
are.
question is, just having gone through all of our big processes, do we need a request for bid? Are we what's the actual, I don't know if we can directly start reaching out to contractors.
I don't think we can until we
Yeah.
know that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
CPA does require, that would be something that,
Yeah.
it does need the full rigmarole
Yeah.
of like newspapers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think there would need to be an open application, so we can start collecting names of people to invite to apply. Right, when there's something
Exactly.
to apply to, but I
Yeah,
think the
yeah.
first big step is actually probably gonna fall on Kate in terms of. What are we setting up that they apply to?
Yeah. Okay. So let's take next steps on that, between now and April, which is, I'll reach out to Rebecca and, ask her recommendations on just what the range of firms are. I think we have some idea of what that is. We've put some of them into our grant application to CPA in the first place. But I'll get her, yeah, we actually had to submit a list of professional consultants and contractors. It's right here. Williamstown, Skylight Studios, and Daedalus Art Restoration. So anyway,
Yeah, I believe, because that we need to have 3 bids, is that correct?
I'm not sure if we need to have 3 bids on each project. Yeah,
Okay.
so because they're going to be different projects. The assessment of the murals is going to be a different firm than the assessment of the 3D works.
And I think what tips it over is the amount. So,
Correct.
right,
Yeah.
and I can't remember, was it 50,000?
I don't remember either.
It's in our notes somewhere.
Yeah.
So figuring out what is the tipping point that shifts from, you know, just a request for bids to a full,
Oh, right, yeah, exactly, to the.
where the
Yeah.
full proposal where
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to have 3
Okay.
bids and you
Yeah.
probably have to choose the lowest and
Yeah.
like all of those
Yes.
roles.
Yes,
Cause I remember David was very clear when we
Yes.
were working on the inventory process that there is a line that tips it.
yeah, I believe it, I think you are right with the 50,000.
Yeah, it was big. It was bigger than I expected,
Mhm.
cause our Tablet Rock fell under it. I think,
Yeah.
right? Tablet Rock, we
looked
didn't need to get 3 proposals. if I
Right,
remember.
you're right. So if it's below a certain amount, you don't have to do an RFP. That being said, I think the CPA money has special rules about, when you're doing historic preservation, like there's like state. And maybe it's only
Yeah.
with buildings, but like I think that like, I don't know, there's just CPA has some preservation rules.
On
But
top
you're
of the
correct
state rules.
about, you're correct about like, I don't think that like if it's under a certain amount, you don't have to.
Right,
do it.
right, and then
You're
it's
good
just
point.
RFP versus 3 bids. I
Yeah.
think,
Right, it's a,
Do you mind just asking to clarify
I
for
will,
us?
I think I do have that somewhere in an email from David, so I will.
yeah, I
pull
think it was tied to, if
Yeah.
you're searching for it, I think it was tied to Tablet Rock. That's when we had
Yeah,
this
yeah,
conversation.
Okay.
Of what tips it from, and I think the language matters, what tips it from call for proposals, which is the larger category, to a request for bids, which
Yeah,
is the
yeah, yeah.
smaller category, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's right, and there is an MOU to, memorandum of understanding that has been through the city and has been signed by the legal department, that I had to do to actually accept the funds.
Okay,
And so I'll see if that has something in it about the process. I think it does. Anyway, so if you guys are interested, the application is on our shared folder, you know, and it's just kind of has a list of all the things, and Anna too, you'll have access to this. It has a list of all the things that we said that we wanted to have assessed. Joan of Arc, Man at the Wheel, Soldiers and Sailors Monument at City Hall, blah, blah, blah. So that's that. Good. So we'll take next steps on that, learn more between now and April, and move it forward. Sound good?
Yes,
Okay.
that's huge, awesome.
Huh?
That's huge.
yeah,
Yeah.
exciting.
Yay, money. So our policies and practices, we've touched on this a little bit already. The last thing that happened on that, this was a document that we created, as we mentioned before, and passed along to the mayor's office, and what's the last step? Yep, so the mayor passed it along to Suzanne Egan, our the legal counsel. The ordinance creating this body was updated in 2022 and posted, and it's on the website. And then David had said the Policies and Procedures Manual is a practical and guidance document for the Committee for the Arts. Similarly, the Planning Board has one, ZBA has one. The ordinance simply needs to iterate that the Committee for the Arts will follow its policies and procedures, a living document. So it needs to go into the ordinance. And David, this was in end of January, asked Suzanne, would you like me to set up a time to review the changes? And so why don't I follow up with that? Because I don't see that there was a response to that. In January. Okay, so that's the, things take so long and differently with the city. City collections subcommittee brief report. I don't think there is a city collections subcommittee that we set up last year, which it consisted of me, Judith, and Rebecca Reynolds. Rebecca's not on it anymore. Do we have a replacement? Did we do a replacement?
No.
For that? No, okay. We don't have anything to report, you know, really just the mayoral portraits that were up in the balcony of City Hall that were all like cockeyed and in disarray and out of order are now rehung in order. And we checked it against the inventory as we were doing that with the
The
city.
original way sounds fun though.
Yeah.
It could have been.
You don't want Hawkeye
Hidden
like super on your,
Yeah, anyway, so the mayoral portraits, that was one project that we got done. And also we asked for our Committee for the Arts office, which is up off the balcony in City Hall. There's a door, and Judith some years ago put up a sign that says Committee for the Arts. So we've kind of owned that little office, but it was full of things, other documents and from other departments. And David arranged to clean everything out and really have it be a more
Oh, great.
functional.
Could that be
Um,
your office? She's in a conference room right now.
You
The-
can-
They are,
Yeah.
interestingly, the city, it has, it's been several months in planning. So for Pond Road, they have hired an outside contractor to reconfigure the entire space there. So with the building department, community development, conservation. And, from my understanding, it will be complete in 5 weeks.
Okay. Good.
We'll see if we have the login.
So,
See about
and
that.
that time of, yeah, so it
All
is,
right.
it's this, the lack of space, Studio Hall's employees have been outgrowing the city space.
Well, we have a little Committee for the Arts office up off of the balcony, so, and it apparently is much more clean than it was before, so.
Sometimes, yeah.
It is a good place to store paintings too. Oh, the other thing about that we were able to accomplish, I think, with all of us was we've accepted several pieces of artwork over the last year that were donated to the city, including 4 large Roger Curtis paintings that are, 2 of them are now in Kira's auditorium on either side of the door as you're leaving. Big seascapes, gigantic seascapes. And then the other 2 are now in the clerk's office. And they look, they're very happy in the clerk's office, the employees to have those there, as opposed to the cockeyed other things that were in there before. So anyway.
It really is, I mean, we should have like a document, like, or maybe even just how this is really evolving and how it's just, I mean, just like these pieces are so beautiful. Yeah, it's nice,
Yeah.
it's nice to see.
It is, yeah, it is. So that's it for the city collections subcommittee brief report. The next thing on the agenda is talking about the cultural plan and the city master plan. The city master plan process is ongoing, as we all know. They continue to collect, data and assess data across the city for all purposes. We had submitted, it's in our shared document, a draft basic cultural plan. It's a framework more than a plan. A plan actually has who's responsible for what and over what time period kind of thing. This is mainly a framework that has some aspirational ideas for arts and culture in Gloucester. And some time ago, I sent it along to the planning team, the comprehensive planning team. And the feedback I got from that, it was Ilana Zabar from the Goldson team. And let me just pull up the feedback that I got from her. There it is. She said at that time, and this was back in mid-January. Thanks for sending this over. Looks like a great document. Wondering the best way to incorporate into our efforts. Without the full context, this looks like a draft cultural plan for Gloucester. If that's the case, I think it should stay as a standalone document, something that receives the attention it deserves, independent of the comp plan process. That said, we want to highlight the energy and ideas behind your document within our culture comprehensive plan. To make sure they're captured, I can incorporate the ideas, including here as a submission, MIAB submission, which is how they collected public data that answers to two of the activities, a vision for Gloucester and ways to play in and experience Gloucester. So I said, that sounds great. And so now they've gone through that process. And if you look at those two categories of work that they're doing, you know, the gist, I guess, or the feel or the spirit of what we submitted is in there, nothing specifically. So we can decide at some point what to do with this, you know, whether to go on and maybe apply to MAPC to get some technical assistance or funding to hire. What we'd have to do if we want a full-on cultural plan for Gloucester, we would need to hire a consulting team or a consultant to help us through that process, which would take a matter of months, and it would have, you know, specific, you know, goals and timelines and things like that, funding sources and all. So that's something we can do or not. I think from my point of view, it's good. I think it was good to have what we did, which was a pretty comprehensive framework in the eyes of the comp plan people and in the eyes of the city. You know, the mayor has it. And maybe just to keep that front and center this year while we have other pretty significant tasks to bite off. What do you think?
I think that makes sense. It
Yeah.
does sound to me like we should look at the MAPC grant because I'm guessing it will take a while. So if we look
Okay.
now
Yeah.
and we apply,
Mhm.
and then it probably would end up being a 2025 project.
Yeah.
Right, if we
Mhm.
got our funding lined up now.
Yeah.
And I think it would make a lot of sense if we tried to aim for 2025 for a cultural plan, because
Yeah.
by that
Yeah.
point, the comprehensive plan would be done and we could just kind of ride on the wheels of the inventory, the assessment.
Well, and really just, I think if for that grant to be really, like you said, you know, taking what we have, which is a framework, and giving it some, you know, some goals and some action, you know, and who's on first type of info, that would be, I think, a huge gift for our time.
I do.
Yeah, and maybe it makes sense to do that after the comp plan's done. You know, the comp plan's gonna be wrapped up for Gloucester when? Is that sometime this year?
Yes.
By the end of the year? Yeah, and that, you know, that includes everything about Gloucester, obviously, including arts and culture, but it's not granular like ours
No.
would be.
No,
you
it's,
know.
I found it, I mean, I was slightly surprised at how broad it was
Yeah,
But I think to your point, like,
regarding the arts.
MAPC likes to use things like that as what I think is part of where they're, you know, is to inform what then they create.
mhm,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like, just from a quick, that it's aiming to be wrapped up at the end of 2024, the comp
Yeah,
plan.
okay, great, thanks. And ours, you know, our framework, you know, addressed things like, you know, underutilized spaces, you
Yes.
know, and how to create public policy around, you know, incentivizing, you know, use of underutilized spaces for arts and culture.
Like the pop-up store that they
Yeah.
have downtown, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Mm.
Yeah. So, you know, more public policy, but like what the city can do. Anyway, it's more specific, so. Okay,
And David isn't here at the meeting, but I do know, I had reached out to him several times as he was supposed to be connecting with Michael Bobbitt and the mayor at one point, but I
They-
received no follow-up with the.
I don't
I was
know.
part of that meeting, so I can.
Oh,
You were-
perfect. Yay.
When we jump to that.
Okay, all right.
Why
I
don't
just
we-
wanted to
Yeah,
raise that issue, thinking
Mhm.
about that.
it's not on the agenda, but
Okay.
let's, so we can talk about
Well, I
it.
think the agenda item that it covers is the property tax relief for cultural.
Okay,
Yes,
all
yes,
right.
correct. Yeah.
Well,
Spacious.
let's jump to that then. if we're
Okay.
done with
Excellent,
the
what's
master
next?
plan.
If we're done with the
Next on
master plan.
agenda.
Yeah,
Next
yeah,
on the
yeah.
agenda.
Yeah.
So we had a meeting
A couple weeks.
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Time is ephemeral. With Michael Bobbitt, the mayor, David Fields, myself, and David Calvo, who's a committee member, for those who are new. And it was a pretty high level conversation about David Calvo's ideas of tax relief. Michael seemed to be pushing, Michael Bobbitt, who's the director of the Massachusetts Cultural Council, seemed to be pushing more in the direction of identifying smaller spaces rather than trying to go for big buildings. I
Mhm.
think after his experience with the Lowell Studios,
Oh, right.
which are some of the largest studios, but then the owner wanted to sell them and
Yeah.
nobody wanted to buy them. And there was this whole big push from MCC, and I think Mass Development got involved to purchase the building. And so I think what I picked up from that meeting was that Michael Bobbitt was giving advice to look for smaller spaces, kind of that underutilized space. We talked some about the idea of like what Boston did, which is the working with the city to require a 1% of all new development for community benefit, one of which could be arts. That's how the Powell Art Center in Boston came about, and a couple of other places. I don't think there was any, we did mention the idea from this committee of a list of, why am I blanking on the language? Artist certification, certifying the number of artists. So
Right.
there's some program where artists could apply to be on a roster, and if you're a city certified artist, you get dibs on some city funded spaces. It's kind of structures that I think
This Boston does it as an application process, basically to prove that you're an artist, essentially,
Right.
yeah.
which then means that, if the city designates funding to artists, they have a selected group of people they can give it to.
Mhm.
So it's just a lot of really high level conversations. I don't think there were any specific tangible. Next steps.
Did the mayor have any input?
Yeah, he was intrigued. I think, both David Calvo and Michael have big ideas and lots of things to share. So there was a lot more listening, I think, from the mayor and David Fields than necessarily engagement.
Mhm.
But there was interest, and I think he heard the need, but you could also tell he was very much balancing it with all of the other needs
Yeah,
of space and cluster.
yeah.
So my coming out of that meeting was that there isn't really any interest in an immediate push for things like tax relief, that seemed really big. And that Michael was suggesting some other ways that we could potentially support artists in Gloucester, specifically through affordable spaces at a smaller level.
That's great, though. I'm really happy that the meeting happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone seemed very positive walking away from it, but it was
Yeah.
kind of more just like, let's talk about the issues at hand rather than solutions.
I still think one thing that in this whole thing, because I do think this project is longer than like a timeline that I can foresee, but practice makes policy. And, if there's some work that we can do as a committee to lift up what sort of residential artist programs there are in the city. So I think about like Gloucester Stage provides we look for housing donors that let people stay in their houses for a time period, we bank them with tickets. Cape Ann Plein Air does the same. There's, organizations that are Rockport Music, I think does some sort of that. So I just, highlighting that
That's a good idea.
as sort of like, it's already in practice in
Yeah.
some ways.
Yeah,
Lifting that up because, I don't want another organization to know who my people are, they might take them right or
Oh,
something.
exactly.
But that being said, that it's happening everywhere.
right.
And so if those people start seeing, there's lots of us,
Yeah.
and we could be saving on property taxes.
Yeah.
Eventually, it would be like, oh, there's no question, we should do this. So,
Right.
Or maybe
That's
like
that's building a coalition around it, is what
And
you're
then,
saying.
and
yeah.
rather than focusing on the negative as to what happened in Lowell, you know, it's focusing on the positives that are already in place. And
Right.
that, you know, just people might need to be reminded of some of these things that are going on. Yeah.
Right, and like, and you know, like just like a public support of it, right? This is,
Mhm.
housing is hard. And
Mhm.
what great that these people are donating and volunteering right now. And then, oh gosh, wouldn't it be great if there was more incentive for this?
Right,
You know,
right.
what's that look like,
Other than
everyone,
tickets.
you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Practice makes possible.
Yeah, I've, you know, in this discussion, you know, which has started some time ago now, you know, whether Gloucester could be open to some sort of property tax relief for cultural use of spaces. You know, I think one of the first things I've been looking for is just like, what data is out there? Who's done it before? You know, what other communities across the country or elsewhere have done this? And what does it look like on one hand? And then the second question is, what does it cost? What doesn't get funded if this is, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, what, we would need a tax policy analyst, right? To actually look at,
Right.
you know, what the impact of this would be if some percentage of property taxes weren't collected, you know? So it's very complicated. It's not an easy.
It's something
policy.
that, you know, citizens vote on and it's, you know, it is a major initiative, but what about, I know the flip side is what about just partnering with all of the city's developers? Like, I know that's another sort of a private part where
Yeah.
funding can, you know.
Definitely, but
Yeah.
what body does that? It's not
Right.
gonna be us. I mean, we
No.
can't take on something that's not really part of our mission, you know, but yeah, like,
Who oversees that?
Right,
Yeah,
right,
that's
right.
because I think the developers might.
it's
be
your
another-
department when you have an assistant, when you're full-time and then you have
Yeah.
an assistant,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
But I think body wise, it's probably zoning. I think, from my understanding of places in Boston where they require, the zoning department puts in a requirement of all public development that a percentage of new development is slated for nonprofit use.
Mhm,
And that I think would have to go through zoning.
mhm.
Yeah, and I've seen
planning.
the success in Seaport with, you know, some areas there and I really, you know, that is something that might be viable versus percentage of taxation.
Well, it's a ongoing conversation that we have and I think it's a good one to have, so. Anything on the last agenda item, Miranda, or anybody else? We have this Cape Ann Creates campaign. This is just an ongoing thing that we carry over every month, just keep our eyes on it.
Yeah, this is my monthly reminder to check the Instagram and see who's been using it. For those who are new and working on things, inspired by the Essex County Creates initiative from Essex, from ECCF, we started doing Cape Ann Creates.
Hashtag.
Hashtag Cape Ann Creates. That's a real official city work here. So I do encourage our new members and your participating organizations. I think Cape Ann Plein Air, the Cape Ann Museum through me, Gloucester Stage, a lot of folks are using it. We're trying to get individual artists to use it as well.
I'll remind the city's social media.
Oh, you know what? Actually, this is very self-serving, but the city social media did a highlight on me at the Cape Ann
Oh,
Museum.
Oh.
And that was tagged Cape Ann Creates,
Oh.
so they know about it.
Yeah, no, I send them like the Rocky Neck updates and different updates from the city that I receive and you know, I leave it to the powers that be with our consultants. But
Great.
Yeah.
We'll
But-
keep-
Yeah, it's just a regular reminder. I
Yeah.
think when you come from the meeting, post something to social media with Cape Ann Creates.
Mhm. Yeah.
Cause all of this, I mean, to Chris's point, which I think is great, is that practice makes policy. The more we make the
Mhm.
arts here visual,
Yeah.
the easier it is to find support.
Yeah. Good. All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'm gonna try to turn this off.
Yes.
Stop
Just
video.
unplug it.
I don't think we met before, I'm sorry.
And-
Nice to meet you. Yeah.